What is up, Knicks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Fireside Knicks. I'm your host, Dylan Backer, and today we had a preseason game. We actually had some basketball today. The New York Knicks started their preseason against the Charlotte Hornets, and they came away with a win. They won by a score of 111 to 109. There are a lot of interesting takeaways from this. I think it's important to note that the starters did not play the entire game, but they played a lot more than I thought they were going to play. They played most of the first half a little bit, so we're just going to jump right into some takeaways from this game. So starting off with the starters, of course, right? This was the unofficial debuts of their newcomers, Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns. Both of those guys played about 15 minutes. And they had some varying games, right? Mikal Bridges had only 4 points and only went 2 of 5 from the field. He didn't really get that much involved, but, he's still trying to figure it out a little bit. He's trying to figure out his role, and I'm not going to overlook what he did in a preseason game, especially with that little action as well. Karl Anthony Towns had a little bit more action, though, than Bridges did. He scored 10 points, but he was a little inefficient. 2 of 7 from the floor, 1 of 5 from 3, but the 1 3 that he did hit was from really far out. It was from, the parking lot, so, that's encouraging to see. It's nice and refreshing to see that the Knicks now have a big that can space the floor and shoot. Of course, we'll see a lot more action from those two guys as the preseason goes along. I wasn't expecting much in the opener, especially. I honestly didn't even think that they were going to play past the first quarter. The fact that they even did come back out in the second quarter to close out the first half kind of surprised me. But moving on to the next guy, Jalen Brunson. This was his first game action since suffering that broken hand in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals last season, which of course was such a heartbreaking defeat and a heartbreaking way to go out. In a season there were so many guys got hurt. Of course, it ended with our best player getting hurt in the process, but Brunson is healthy now. He clearly showed that today in the first preseason game, going 5 for 11 from the floor, 2 of 4 from 3, and logging 12 points. He looked like he didn't miss a single step. He was knocking down some good mid-range shots. Obviously those 2 threes that I just mentioned. He looked to be in a groove as usual, and I'm really excited to see him again this season. I think he's going to take yet another leap like he's been doing every single season. Of course, he's got more stuff to do though. With the preseason stuff, he's going to be playing a lot more. I from what I remember hearing on the broadcast, I believe they said that Tom Thibodeau said that as the preseason goes along, the starters will get some more minutes and they'll get more burned together because these guys need to form chemistry together. This is a brand new starting five, as we've been talking about the past couple weeks. It is a brand new team. There's no more Julius Randle. There's no more RJ Barrett. No more Emmanuel Quickly. It's a brand new starting five. Everything is new. These guys need to get used to playing with each other. Thankfully, Brunson has played with Bridges before, and thankfully Towns has played under the coaching of Thibodeau before. So there's a little bit of chemistry already there, but it's not quite fully there just yet. Obviously, they still got to get used to playing each other in an NBA capacity. Of course, fitting in OG Anunoby in there as well. So there's a lot of stuff to be done. But the next thing I want to talk about, and perhaps the biggest thing to note in this game, the bench unit. We just made a video a couple days ago about, all the questions that there are to be had about this bench unit. You don't have Dante DiVincenzo anymore following the trade for Towns, and it just happened. So it's like all of a sudden we have to evaluate this bench and see what we got. And you know what? In this first game of the preseason, I really liked what I saw from the bench. I thought these guys provided some really strong minutes. Now, granted, it was against, Charlotte Hornets' third stringers and second stringers, so of course you can't draw a definitive conclusion off of just one preseason game. But the guys that did play really stood out, especially Miles McBride. Miles McBride played 25 minutes. He logged 22 points, 8 of 18 from the floor, and 4 of 9 from 3. This guy was really lighting it up from the outside, and, I want to talk about him for a second because I said in the video the other day that I think he should stay in the bench role, and I understand there's an argument for him starting. I think it could be a good idea to have him start too. I'm not against it, not fully against it, but I like the fact that this is a guy who can score, and I want the Knicks bench to have a guy that can score. And I think McBride is that exact person, and I think he only proved that today. Now, of course, you could argue that this game made it a stronger case for him to start because Josh Hart, in fact, did not record a single point in the 15 minutes that he played. So you could make the argument that maybe McBride made a better case to start in this game, but at the same time, I think when you're looking at the way the team is constructed, I think your best lineup is still with Josh Hart on the floor starting with the rest of the guys and Miles McBride leading the bench unit. I think that's still their best lineup personally, but of course maybe my opinion will change as the preseason goes along. Maybe my opinion changes as the regular season goes along too. We still got a lot more to talk about with that. We just had one preseason game. We can't make a final conclusion on what these players can do. But some other guys that really contributed. Precious Achiuwa, he played 33 minutes, which was a team high, the most out of anybody, and he had 15 points, 6 or 9 from the floor, and he even knocked down a three. It was a bank shot, but seeing him actually knock down a three is encouraging because you want this guy to be able to space the floor just a little bit. It's part of the reason why, it's been so concerning thinking about the idea of him starting. I know some people have said he should start and, maybe have Towns and Achiuwa together, but I don't like that idea at all, personally. So I think really if Achiuwa can really kind of figure himself out offensively, he can be a really important piece in the bench unit, and I think seeing what he did today was very good. And he had that crazy poster dunk as well in the second quarter that I'm sure everyone has seen by now. That was wild. I mean, I know Achiuwa is a very athletic guy, but he took that off the dribble and right to the basket. I mean, I was blown away by that one. Some other guys that contributed some strong minutes as well. Cameron Payne, 26 minutes, 5 of 14 from the floor, 11 points and 6 assists. He only went 1 of 7 from 3, but this is a guy that is probably going to at this point find his way into the rotation just given the lack of depth they have on the bench. And you know what? If he can provide production like that on a nightly basis, or at least similar to that, because I mean, obviously he's not going to play. I don't think he's going to be playing 26 minutes a game in the regular season. But if he can provide production that is, on like a per 36-minute basis, something like that, then I will take it. I will gladly take it, honestly, and it's something we could really use. Now, the man that I really want to talk about this game, Landry Shamet. This is a guy who the Knicks signed on a non-guaranteed deal just a couple of weeks ago, so he has to fight for a roster spot. He is not guaranteed to make the rotation or the active roster at the start of the season, but he really made a strong case to make the team with this game in the preseason opener. He had 16 points, 6 of 11 from the floor, 4 of 8 from 3, and he had 4 rebounds. I mean, he was really knocking down some tough shots, especially off catch and shoots and stuff, and I think that's a really good strength that the Knicks could use out of him in a bench role. He could kind of replace that DiVincenzo production a little bit, obviously maybe not to the same degree, but this is a guy who has kind of got a proven track record of being a very solid three-point shooter, so I think signing him was a plus to begin with, but after what he did today, I'm very encouraged by it, and I think he really has a chance now to make the rotation. I could very much see it. I could see him getting an actual contract, making the rotation, and being a very impactful bench player. I mean, this is a guy who can come into the game and just hit threes left and right. And the Knicks could really use that. I mean, the Knicks have plenty of shooters as it is, but having another guy at your disposal off the bench that can do the exact same thing, that's always a good luxury to have. And of course, he's got the chemistry with Cameron Payne and Mikal Bridges because he played with both of them during his time in the Phoenix Suns. So there's always that as well. You might if Shamet does make the rotation, you see a lot of time with those three playing together. I could very much see that. That's a very strong possibility, and I would really like that. Bridges leading the second unit alongside Payne and Shamet, I think could bring some really good offensive results. But of course, we'll have to wait and see for that to really come to fruition because the starters mostly just played with each other while the bench unit was together. They didn't really separate the two. And the last guy I want to bring up too, Tyler Kolek. This is the drafted rookie that they had back in the second round. He was really good in Summer League. He, I think, was one of the top assist leaders in Summer League as well, and he was, of course, one of the best players in all of college basketball the last 2 seasons. Big East Player of the Year in 2022, 2023 with Marquette. And today, against Charlotte, he was very good. 14 minutes, 3 of 5, all 3-pointers, and 11 points. I mean, he only had 1 assist, and this is a guy, of course, who excels in playmaking, so, it was a little odd to see him not really be involved in the passing game as much as the other guys, but I think the good thing I can take away from this is that he was willing to score, and it's kind of been an overlooked part of Kolek's game, is that he is a solid scorer. This is a guy who can shoot the 3-ball at a decent rate. He's like a 37%, 39% shooter, somewhere around that range during his college career. This is a guy who is proven to be a pretty solid scorer from the outside. Yes, he's smaller, and yes, because of all the guards we have, it is going to be a little bit tougher for this guy to find a way into the rotation, but I was very encouraged by it. I think he's making a strong case to at least fight for a rotation spot. I don't know how likely it is that he will earn that spot, just like I said, given the amount of guards that we already have. I don't know if he's necessarily going to be able to outplay like Cameron Payne or Landry Shamet or Miles McBride even. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think regardless, seeing him be impactful right away in an NBA setting is encouraging to see. Of course, you want to see how he would do against actual rotation NBA players rather than, third stringers against the Charlotte Hornets, who, respectfully are not a very good basketball team. So, of course, this isn't like something you can draw a final conclusion on with Kolek, but very encouraging performance nonetheless. I'm happy to see him get involved in the scoring. I'm happy that Thibodeau gave him an opportunity to play a little bit. I know I expected him to get some minutes regardless just because it's the preseason, but I'm happy that he let him be out there, and he let him close the game too. So I think that's another good thing I can take away from that. He let him close the game. Yes, preseason, of course, but he did let him close the game, and he was out there, and he hit some good shots. So very happy with that. Other guys worth noting, Jericho Sims, he had 10 rebounds in this game in 21 minutes played. This is another guy that, I wrote about this on EmpireSportsMedia.com, but, he has all the tools to possibly break out, but I just don't know where he would be able to fit in this rotation, especially now that the center position is taken up by an all-star in Karl-Anthony Towns. It's going to be very tough for Sims to really kind of break out into any sort of role and be able to have a, quote-unquote breakout season. I acknowledge that he is someone that has the capability to do that. He's a good high flyer. He's very athletic. He's, proven to be a pretty solid defender, too, all around. So this is a guy with a lot of potential. And, he did have a good game in the preseason, this one against Charlotte. But, of course, like I said, it's just going to be tough for him. It's going to be very tough for him to find a way into the rotation. So we'll see what happens when the preseason winds down. You kind of will have a better idea of what these rotations will look like. You can't really tell off the first preseason game because it's usually the opportunity where you give the starters some burn to kind of loosen up a little bit, but then you let the rookies and non-guaranteed guys kind of get some minutes to see what you have in these guys. And I think Thibodeau did a good job at kind of evaluating these guys, and I think the guys that did get on the court today really showed something. I think we've seen a lot of potential with these guys, and maybe this bench unit will be better than what we think. Like I said, there's been a lot of questions with it. We're really unsure of what this unit will look like just because it seems like the starting five is very top-heavy, and then the bench unit's kind of weaker in that department, which a lot of good teams don't have the best benches. It's kind of what you sacrifice when you make two trades in the offseason, for one for a fringe all-star and another for a perennial all-star. You kind of take that risk when when you make moves like that in one offseason. So it is what it is, but I think ultimately they showed a lot. I think they showed the capability of being a solid unit. But of course, we won't know for certain until the preseason winds down, until the regular season begins, and we really see what these guys can do in an actual NBA setting and not just in the preseason. But their next game is against the Washington Wizards back home on Wednesday. Perhaps we see the starters for a little bit more in that game, maybe like an extra 5 minutes for each of those guys. Maybe they play a little bit more in the first quarter. We'll see what happens, but I don't really expect much different of a rotation than what we saw against Charlotte. I think it's going to be a very similar rotation. I think the starters will get just a little bit of burn. They'll play together for a bit. And then I think the rest of the game you're going to see a lot of the bench guys. I think you'll see a lot more Chua. I think you're going to see a lot more Tyler Kolek now, though, after what he did against Charlotte. I think you're going to see him a lot in the next game against Washington. I think you'll see a lot of Cameron Payne, more Miles McBride, and Landry Shamet, of course, is going to get a lot of burn as well. I think those four guys are going to be playing a lot in the next coming days. So we'll see what happens with that. But guys, we really hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was a shorter one, but it's just a preseason, but we want to cover these games. We're very excited that basketball is back. We can't wait for the regular season to begin and for this team to really start their title quest, because we know that the expectations around this team are sky high, and we saw a glimpse of what this team can provide on a nightly basis. So with that being said, guys, follow us on all of our social media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, of course, this YouTube page. You can follow my personal Twitter account if you want. It's right there on the screen below. And we'll see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. Peace out.